Begin the Quran Daf Mesechta Kidushin Daf Nun Tes. Begin on the bottom of Nun Chesma Beis, where we begin the third parak of Mesechta Kidushin, parak Emer, which talks about two men, the Mekadesh, one woman. Where what's the status regarding different cases of two men and one woman? Obviously, two men cannot be engaged to one woman. Shaila is regarding when there's difference in cases, how to know who's the one that's engaged to this one woman. Since today's daf are minigra mois, which is don't act in a way that deceptive people act. On the famous sugya of the pauper that was chasing after a biscuit, and someone goes and snatches it before him, which is basically the very famous sugya in Kidushin Daf about someone that's trying to get something and someone else beats him to that property first, to that item first, even though the guy was trying to get that house first. Someone says, you should be engaged to me after 30 days. What's the status of the woman within the 30 days? Dibur mevatel dibur, halacha that could words nullify previously spoken words. Bitlat shlei tagam, if he's mevatel the shlich before he doesn't take over truma. What happens if he's mekadesh a woman for after 30 days and she backs out within the 30 days? Would that be considered valid? You read the Valiyah Matuma, we discussed regarding what makes something go down to be able to be susceptible to Tumah, and things that remove it from Tumah. Megarish boy, if he goes back and he's Megarish, what's the halacha when you say from now and after 30 days? What's the status of the woman during that period of time? So begin, Daf Nun Chesma Beis, the third parak, Kol Eimer L'Chaver. Someone says to his friend, say v'kadosh le'isha plainis, go out and do me a favor. There's a woman that I want you to betroth me to, get me engaged to that woman. This guy, the shlich, goes, he meets this woman. He's like, hey, I think I can use such a shidduch. And he goes and he gives it, and he engages her for himself. She's engaged to the second one. Which Trace asks, says, what chiddush is over here? Obviously, if he goes and gets her engaged for himself, she's going to be engaged to him. So he says, interesting. He says, you could say this talking about the shliach first said to the woman at the time of the Kidushin, he says, I want you to know, this Reuven sent me that I should get you engaged to him. And then in the middle of the conversation, he says to her, Harid Mekadesh Li. And she knows that he'd be Mekadesh her to himself. Because if not, she wouldn't be engaged to him. The Chiddush that we're saying is, what would you say? This that he says, to me, means for my shlichus that I need to do, which is for him. Mashallah, no. When he says Harid Mekadesh Li, it means for him, and she'd be engaged to him and not to the guy that sent him to betroth her for him. Continues the Mishnah. If someone says to a woman, you are engaged to me for post 30 days. Okay. And someone else comes along and gets engaged to her within 30 days. The guy said it's only the engagement will be after 30 days. Someone comes within that time, she's engaged to the second person. So if let's say it's Bas Yisrael a Kohen, let's say the second guy was a Kohen and she's a Bas Yisrael, she could eat Truma. Now what happens if he said from now and after 30 days? Someone else comes in betrothed within 30 days. So here she's Mukadeshes ve'ein Mukadeshes. She's engaged but not engaged to both of them. Meaning she's forbidden to both of them. Only if one of them gives her a get, and to the other one she's forbidden until both give a get. Gemara is going to have machlekes regarding this halacha, and the Gemara is going to explain what's the reasoning of this halacha of Mukadesha and Nikadesha. So if she's a Bas Yisrael l'Kayin, let's say the second one was a Kayin, she cannot eat Truma because maybe it's not Kedushin. But Bas Kayin l'Yisrael, even if she's a Bas Kayin to Yisrael, also l'Tech b'Truma, she cannot eat Truma from her father's house because maybe it is a Kedushin. And the non-Kayin that she's engaged to invalidates from Kedushin, a Bas Kayin from eating Truma, so we're not sure. She's Mukadesha, but she's not Mukadesha. As we'll see in the Gemara, what's unique about this case of what's the status of that Kidushin? So the Gemara quotes in the Mishnah, who said, if someone says to his friend, say Kaddish, go out and betroth me, and he goes and does it for himself, we said she's going to be engaged to the second person. It says the Gemara, however, in the Bryce and Masha Asa, you're right. Like we said in the Mishnah, what he did was done, but he conducted himself in the conduct of people that are deceptive. Now, but our Mishnah, he alludes to this idea because halach na'amid diktani, when the Mishnah says v'halach v'kidsh lasma, he went. What's the went? Halach b'ramos, he went in the path of a Ramai. So the Gemara wonders, what's the difference in our Mishnah? The Mishnah opened up and they called him They called him his friend. Someone says to his friend, go do me a favor, and he goes and he takes the two Stella D'Or cookies and he takes to the girl and he says, hey, you know what? Don't be engaged to him, be engaged to me. As we continue to the Testament Aleph, Hasam. Why over there in Perikish Mekadesh that we had on the Abnunam and Aleph, there the Mishnah said, if someone says to his agent, not to his friend. The case over there was, if he says to his agent, go out and be Mekadesh to me an Isha, that woman in that place. And he goes and he gets her engaged to him in another place. So he said over there, she's not going to be engaged. The Gemara wants to know, why over there did it say a terminology of shlichus, that he sent him for that purpose? And here it calls him as chaver, which means chaver sounds like it wasn't a shliach for that purpose. Only if you encounter in that place, when you're there, then you'll be Mekadesh her. So the Gemara says, each Mishnah has a chiddush in calling that one a shliach, and over here calling it a chaver. Why? The reason why we said is because the Iton Shlucha, had we said that he says to a shliach, I would say shlucha hu dehaberamai. I would say, that there his agent is being deceptive because the samchadaite. He's relying on the shliach. Somebody thinks, he's going to do my agency. I made him, I hired him as a shliach. So that's when he's considered as a ramai. But his friend, that he's not relying on him. He's not a shliach. He's a friend. I would say that he does not have the halachic status of a ramai. That's the chiddush that we're saying. Even if it's quote unquote lechaveroi, not l'shluchai, Maisa, he said, do me a favor, if you meet this girl, get her engaged, and he's doing it for himself, he's considered a ramai. And Hasam Revusik Mashman, there is in that Mishnah, Daf Nun, is also a chiddush. Because the Itan had we said, if someone says to his friend, I would have said, yeah, his friend, when he betrothed his heart for him in a different place than where he told him to, that's where she's not going to be engaged, because the Savar, because the Mishaleach thinks, Leitarach, that this Shliach, who is his Chaver, is not going to go through the effort to go and find her for me somewhere else. So he's not relying on him to make him a Shliach, but in the place where he said that, you're going there anyways, she's there, be Mekadesh her. Of a shlucha, the tarich, but his agent, where the guy's a shliach, he's his agent. He'll be matriach. Then I might say that no, he was just saying a coordinate that if you find her over there, be mekadesh heart from me over there. But I'm not going to be matriach you to go somewhere else. But if you're going to do it, he's definitely relying on him. That's why the chiddush over there. No, even if it's l'shluchai, not just l'chaverai, that no, it's not going to be engaged in another place. It's only in the place where he told us. So each mishnah has a unique chiddush in this halacha of calling it chaverai or calling it shluchai, where they have different terminologies. Now the Gemara brings a story related to this idea about being a ramai, about being a deceptive person, which says the Gemara, Ravan Chasida, Ravan the pious one, also the Kedushin Daf, he went to Mekadesh a woman for his son, which Pesach points out that obviously it's talking about a person does not have the audacity to make his father a shliach, but what he could do is, as the Gemara said, he could say to his father, "Oh, Tati, I really like this girl," yada yada yada, and then the father realizes that his son wants this girl, so you could say that then he's relying on his father. So really, the father has the rights then in that situation to go ahead and be mekadesh this woman for his son. So he was going to be mekadesh this woman for his son. This one was relying on him, on the tata. The tata is going to get the deal done. But kitchel nafshe. When the father, Rav and Chasida, saw this woman, he decided to give Mekadesh for himself. Rebbe Shemas says, "I Vatanya in the Brayse Masha Asa Asi." Our Mishnah said, "Yes, you're right. If what you did is done, but it's considered a ram. It's considered deceptive." So the Gemara Lo Yahavu in the Halei. The Mishpucha from the Meidel didn't want the son; they wanted the Grace Rebbe. So when they tried doing for his son Hashidduch, they said, "No, we want only you." So therefore he went and he engaged himself. Says he, but he should have at least told his son to remove himself from this minigramais to say, Tzadikal, I would love to do it for you, but they don't want you. Why didn't he tell him? Says Gemara, no, Sava the Hachi v'Hachi. He thought that if he's going to go back home and tell his son, like they call it, like a real catch. And if he's going to go home, some other Rebbe is waiting on by the side over there. He's going to chap place the idol, and therefore he didn't go back and tell him. Rabbi brings another story. Rabbi Bechana, Yavli Zuzi L'Rav. He gave money to Rav. He says, Zabna Nahali Lahai Ada, do me a favor, go buy for me that piece of land. Also, Zabna Nafshi, he went and he bought it for himself. Says Gemara, but I'm the Brayso also. Yes, you're right. What is done is done. But that's the way, the custom of deceivers. Says Gemara, that this was a valley of a plantation of strong-armed people, and they didn't let any person buy land by them. After the first year who has to come in, it's not easy. He's going to break his way in. L'Rav nogi covered. To Rav, someone just told me over Yom Tov that Satmar also was the same thing. They didn't let any yid, and he was telling me which was the first yid that they let. And Satmar, I'm forgetting what the guy's name was. It was a wealthy guy. So Rav, they gave him honor. Rabbi Chana, they wouldn't have honored Rabbi Chana. So although Rabbi Chana wanted to buy land over there, they wouldn't have let him. They won't let Rav. And then Rav bought it for himself. Says he, but they should have notified him. At least let him know. Say, I want you to know. They don't let. I'm going to go buy myself. Sava here also, he thought someone else is going to snatch this property. And what are you going to do? They don't want to, so you have 10 cars waiting outside, waiting to knock on the door. And so he bought it then beforehand because of that. Now, a related discussion regarding chapping someone else, snatching something before someone else, opens up the famous sugya of Oni Mahapech B'Harara. Says the Gemara of Gidol, have a Mahapech B'Hi Arar. Gidol, and this happens all the time, this sugya, it has intricacies, but you have people trying to get a piece, get a property, get a house. People, we know that people are always in this area, always, you have one guy trying to get it, and it's in attorney review, whatever this guy, somebody says, he gives a higher offer. That's this sugya over here. So Rav Gidl was trying to get a certain piece of property. Also, Rav Abba went and he bought it before Rav Gidl bought it. So Rav Gidl went, and he complained. He told over his story of his complaint. Rabbi Zera says, chutzpah, I'm trying to buy this house, and he comes in, he chaps me eyes. So Rabbi Zera went. He goes to his roof, and he complains to Rabbi Yitzchak. Amalei said to him, Hamtin achiyale etzlein l'regel. Wait until he comes to us for Yom Tov. When we darshan the halachas of the Yom Tov, there used to be makabel the ponim of the Rav. It says, yeah, his man chusid. He's not here now. Wait till he comes for Yom Tov. Chaim ois misidin. Kisalik, when he came up, Ashkech, he finds this chusid. Amalei says, he asked him the following question, which generally the best way to have someone understand something, you don't accost him or accuse him. You ask him a shayla, you ask him about other people. You ask him about a thing, what the halach is. Says, if you have a poor person is chasing after a biscuit, meaning there's a hefker cookie there on the floor, or a balabayis is trying to give out cookies, machta tikin, and the balabus he's giving out cookies, and this poor person is coming with his walker, he's trying to get to it. Someone else comes and snatches it first. What's halacha? He says, Nikarasha. The guy who does it is a wicked person because he's going to the life of this person. This guy was trying to get it, and this guy chaps him eyes. So he said to him, Velamar, my time of an the master, why did you do this? You did the same thing. Rav Gidl is trying to get a piece of property, trying to buy a house on this street, and you go and you beat him out and you buy it first. Amalei says to him, love you done. I said, I didn't know Rav Gidl was trying to, and this happens all the time also. The guy comes with an offer, old cash offer. I had no clue that this guy was trying to get this house. So he said, okay, but okay, now let the master give it to him. You don't want to be a Rasha, give it back to that first person. Amalei said to him, he says, no, to sell it to him, I'm not going to sell him what I bought. Why not? Because the Arakamaisi, this is my first property that I'm ever buying. And it's not a good omen, it's not a good simon. A person should sell the first thing he buys, as you find in every pizza store. The first that dollar bill there hanging on the wall. The first dollar bill, you hold on to it. It's a simon type. You don't want to sell the first property that you bought. If he wants, I'll give him a gift. I'm not going to sell. I'll gift it to him. But the Gemara tells Rav Gidl, he wasn't okay with that because the Chesed said Pazia Mishli. Whoever hates gifts will live. I don't want matanas. So Rabbi Abba didn't want it. He didn't want to hold on to it, Mishum the Hapach but Rav Gidla, because he found that Rav Gidla was trying to get it. So neither one was going into the property. He didn't want a gift. He didn't want to hold on to the one that he was trying to buy. But it was called the rabbi's lands because it was hefker for the tamid, and that's where you get all the parking spots. We have people don't want it. This guy doesn't want to take the land. This one doesn't take it. It's in dispute. So it becomes now all the yeshiva lights get the park in it and it becomes the parking space. That was what ended up happening with the property. Now, famously, Taisa brings from Rabbi Tam that he disagrees with Rashi. Rashi talks about it, that it was talking about where it was from Hefker, which has huge ramifications in the halacha, as a Baruch HaShemish, but these two different opinions of Rashi and Rabbi Tam. Rabbi Tam says that no, it's only talking about when it was when you're trying to gain something with a schiris, trying to buy something. The other person comes and buys it first. That's very similar to the case of Rav Gidl. That's what he called a Rasha, because the svar is, why are you trying to get this? Go somewhere else. You can buy it somewhere else. But a charara, the way Rashi describes of hefker, that's not isser, because where am I getting another hefker thing? Hefker you don't get. So that says Rabbi Tam that would not be considered as ani, amhapech, becharara. And Rabbi Tam has many interesting ideas that he brings over here regarding when a guy's going fishing and he puts out the worm, and then because the fish are coming, could another fisher go and fish near there? But this guy caused it to happen. Would that be also in this halacha? Also gets involved, let's say if someone has a malamed. Could someone try to chapais? This guy has a tutor, and he sees a great tutor. He tutors at 7 o'clock with his boy. He comes and he sees the boy. Mom, could he chap the tutor? Could another rebbe come and offer that father, say, I'll do for $50, he charges you $100. Could I charge $50 and chapais the boy? So this is actually differentiates between those two different cases regarding regarding these different halachas, but these all go into the sugya of ani mahapech b'charara. And the Mishnah continued and said, someone says to a woman, that I want you to be engaged to me after 30 days. Not now, not ready yet, but here, take the ring. After 30 days, you'll be engaged to me. And then someone else comes along 10 days later, and he meets the girl and says, by the way, are you married? She says, actually not. He says, yeah, I read Mukadesh, just leave it to Bazu. The loch is she's engaged to the second one. So the Gemara has the following question. Let's say let's say no one else comes within 30 days. She's not some princess that everyone's running after. No one comes. What's the halacha? So Rabbi Shloimy Schwartzberg, they both say Mukadesh, she's going to be engaged. Meaning, what's the chiddush? Of course, because even though the money was consumed that he gave her within 30 days, so that when the Kidushin has to take effect, the money's not here. Even so, the Kidushin is going to take effect. So in my time, what's the reason? Because this money, it cannot be compared to a loan, because by a loan we actually say, Mekadesh b'milva, she's not engaged, because the money's not here, we say anymore. So when the Kidushin is trying to take effect, there's no Kidushin. And it's not similar to a deposit to say that if you don't have a shava pruta left over, she's not going to be engaged, as we said on Daf Mem Zayin Aleph. We said if a man says to a woman, okay, look, I deposited by you $10,000. You should be engaged with that because great, she has the $10,000 at home. She comes home, she finds it was stolen or lost. So he said only if his shava pruta is left over, she's engaged. If not, she's not engaged. Why is this case not similar to a milva or bekadon? So the Gemara explains. The bekadon loydam is not similar to a deposit because bekadon, by deposit, when it got consumed, it wasn't her money, it was his money just deposited by her. So when it got used up, it was never hers. She never got anything. But over here, when this money got consumed that he gave her, here's 10,000 pounds, even though being engaged to me in 30 days, and at day 20 she already used up all the money, she gambled it all away, whatever it is, it was in her domain that it got spent. And the lemilva namal is also not similar to a loan, because a loan is meant to be used before the Kidushin takes effect. When he tells her, be engaged to me with it, it's not his to engage her with. He's not really giving her anything because, the loan I gave you, what loan? That was never, that's not yours now. You cannot be mekadosh with me. But, Hani, these monies were not given to her to use. It was only on the condition that there should be Kidushin with them. So, but there's Kidushin Yavinunala. When he's giving it to her, there's a Maisa Kidushin happening with the money, and therefore, even when she consumes it, she's consuming her own, and therefore, when the time comes, she will be engaged with those monies that he gave her, even though it's not there 30 days later, where the Kidushin is taking effect, which obviously a lot of alumnus will be a Maisa Kidushin, the Chalisa Kidushin, the Kin of the Kidushin, a lot of different things that are happening over here in this sugya. But the Gemara says the following question. What happens if loy ba'acha b'kitsha? Let's say, okay, no one else comes within 30 days to be Mekadesha, but v'chazraba. Within 30 days, she says, you know what? I'm not okay with this. I thought it over. I don't like his here. I don't like his frumka. Something I don't like. I don't want the Kidushin. What's the halach? So here we have a machlekes. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, he says, that she could back out and be mevatla Kidushin because she's mevatla before they take effect. And how does it work? Asi dibur mevatl dibur. The new speech that she's saying of I don't want can mevatl the speech that she originally said that I do want, because a dibur could come along and mevatl a dibur. Shlach Hashomi says no, in she cannot back out. Lo asi dibur mevatl dibur. You cannot have a speech to nullify a previous speech. On that principle, the Gemara asks, really? Eisvei Rabbi Yochanan the Rish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish from a Mishnah Masechtas Trumas. The Mishnah there is talking about if someone says to his agent, go out and take Truma for me. Then Bittel, he nullifies him from being a Hishliach, whether in front of him or not in front of him. So there, Im actually taught on Bittel, if he didn't take Truma yet and he was Mavatlim, so in Truma to Truma, what he ends up taking of Truma is not going to be Truma. Says Rabbi Yochanan, but over here the Dibur v'Dibur, they're both speech. When he made him a shliach and when he undoes a shliach, both are with speech. And we see because of the Movatal Dibur, we see the later speech is nullifying the original speech and making him a shliach. So that says Rish Lakish, you're right. Dibur can Movatal regular Dibur. But Shani Nasinis Mois Liad Isha, giving money to the hand of the woman is different. It's not just speech. It's like an action. So although they're not taking effect right away, but it is an action to take effect after 30 days, you're right, we're calling it a Dibur because there's no actual Maisa. But there is somewhat of a Maisa. So therefore, below us a Dibur, but the Maisa says, that's why I'm saying a later speech of her saying, I don't want, is not enough to be about the original speech of saying, I do want, because there was also somewhat of a Maisa of accepting the money from the hand of the man. But Esvei, Rabbi Yochanan continues to ask on Rish Lakish now from Mishnah Masechtas Gittin. Mishnah says, Hashleich get le'ishtoi. Someone says a get to his wife, B'giyah b'shliach, and he encounters his agent, which Rashi says that's a chiddush, even though he wasn't trying to chase after the shliach. He just happens to be on the train and he sees the guy who he sent to divorce his wife. He happens to bump into him and he says, you know what, bottle. So we don't say that he's just trying to bother his soon-to-be ex-wife, as the Gemara explains in Perek HaShliach. No, we'll say if he encounters the shliach, or he sends an agent after his first shliach, he says to him, "Get you the bottle. Forget about it. You know what? The get that I sent you is null and void. Okay, I was about to be null and void." Says Rabbi Yochanan, wait a second. When the sinas get liad shliach, here was also somewhat of a giving of a get to the hand of an agent. It's very similar to the case of sending money to the hand of the woman, and yet we see the later speech can nullify the first speech, even though there was somewhat of a maisis, exactly like the case of Rish Lakish. You want to say that Dibur cannot be mevatel. Says Rish Lakish, Nahasanami, there also, as long as the get did not come to the hand of the woman, it's nothing. And therefore, Dibur, it is speech and speech. And thus, Dibur mevatel Dibur, meaning he differentiates between when you're giving the money to the woman or when you're giving the get to the shliach. As long as the get did not come to the hand of the woman, you didn't do any ma'is, it's only Dibur. And if yes, Dibur can mevatel Dibur. But I'm saying only when you give money to the woman, somewhat of a ma'isa, then the later Dibur cannot mevatel the earlier Dibur. So Eis Rish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Now the questions go the other way. Rish Lakish asked Rabbi Yochanan from a Mishnah Masechtas Kalim. Mishnah says that Kol HaKelim Yordan Tumasim b'machshava. All Kalim could descend to the halacha of Tumah with a person's thought. What does that mean? So, for example, let's say you have a goylem. So, a goylem is an unfinished item. That's what we call an unintelligent person, a goylem, because he's not a finished product. So, you have an unfinished vessel, which the Gemara says, anything that you're going to smooth out, you're going to chisel away, you still have what to work on it. So, the Gemara says over there that it's still missing work, and therefore it's tar. It's not considered yet like a vessel. Now, let's say you think about it and you say, you know what? I'm into this natural, I'm into this organic, I'm into this modern type of style. We don't make things symmetrical, So that machshava says, no, I'm going to leave it as it is, makes it gemar malacha from here on, and therefore it's makabel tumah now, because your thought of leaving it like this makes it into a vessel. But the ein eliminated tamasin, but it does not get removed from its tumah that it received already. Only if you change something in action, you do an action to destroy the vessel, that you break it, you make a hole. And says Rashi, also if it wasn't even makabel tumah yet, it will not be removed from its status of being susceptible to tumah that it descended to because you thought you wanted to keep it like this, only by doing something of an action. You have to smooth it, you have to chisel, you have to do something to show, no, it's not finished. Then it will not be susceptible to tumah. As we continue on with days, so you see that because maisa moitzi miyad maisa, an action will be removed from an action, meaning when you start to smooth it and sand it down, so that nullifies it from the halachic status that it had, that it was a gemar malacha as a kli, whether it descended to become a kli through an action where you had smoothed it out and you showed that it wasn't missing anything more, or miyad machshava, or let's say it descended into a vessel through a thought, an action will remove it from that status of susceptibility to tumah. But machshava ain't metzia. If you just think that, you know what, nah, it's not finished. I'm postmodern, whatever, I want to go ahead and smooth it out and chisel away. After he had thought that he doesn't want to smooth it or chisel anymore, that machshava will not remove it. It will not remove it from its original machshava that made it susceptible to tumah. Okay, says Rish Lakish, I understand that when you made it susceptible to tumah because you had smoothed it, you did like a finishing touch on it. So I understand that your later machshava cannot remove it from a maisa, because the later dibim batal maisa. A later speech, which is like what machshava is like, cannot remove an earlier maisa. El miyad machshava mi a topic, according to Rabbi Yechanan, why can't his later thought nullify his earlier thought when he originally thought he wanted to be finished? It's makabel tumah. Why can't his later thought say, nah, it's not finished, not remove it? According to you, dibur is mevatel dibur. Says the Gemara, says Rabbi Yechanan, no, shani machshava de tumah. The thoughts as it relates to tumah is different. You're right. Usually machshava can be mitzvah machshava or dibur from dibur, but by tumah is different. Why? Why is tumah different? Because the chi ma'asadame. A dibur, a machshava of by tumah, the Torah calls it an action. Where do you find that? Because Papa Rami, he posed the following contradiction. On the one hand, ksiv, the pasuk is written in Vayikra that v'chi yitan mayim al zer. When you're going to put water on food, and then a tumah of an available fall in it, it's going to become susceptible to tumah, it's going to become tumah. Now the word kiyitin, the way it's written without a vav, is read when you're actively putting water on. But the problem is, b'karina, we read it with a shiur. We read it as if there's a vav, kiyutan, when water will be placed on it, which you're not putting it on. You're just thinking that you want it, you're okay with it on. So how do we understand the pasuk? So kiyutan dumid dechiyitan. The way you read it has to be the way it's written. That how it's put on has to be similar to when you're putting it on. What does that mean? Just like when you're putting on the water means you're okay with it. So too when water is placed in it, has to be that you're okay with it. Meaning, even if water fell by itself, but he in his thought is thinking, great thing, that will be hechsher tumah, will be preparing it susceptible to tumah. That's like as we read it as kiyutan. So we see that even when you don't do an action, we see that machshava by tumah is like an action. It's like kiyitan. And therefore that's why said Rabbi Yechanan that your later machshava cannot be mitzvah from the early machshava because it's like a maisa. But in general, machshava or a dibur can be mevatla from a dibur. That's version number one of this discussion. However, the Gemara brings Rav Zvid Masn Losh Maitze. He taught this teaching of the Machlekes Rabbi Yechanan and Rish Lakish regarding this halacha of our Mishnah of backing out within 30 days of the Mishnah regarding if dibur is mevatla dibur. He actually brought it on a different discussion. He brought it on the Mishnah later on of Ayin Testament Aleph. The Mishnah says over there, so too if the woman, if she gave to her agent permission to get herself engaged. She went, she got herself engaged, meaning she, instead of waiting for the shliach, she got impatient. She said, I'm going to do it myself. So if her Kidushin came first, okay, Kidushin, her Kidushin is valid. If her agent's Kidushin was first, then any Kidushin, obviously her Kidushin, not Kidushin, because the shliach got her engaged first. However, that was what the Mishnah says. This is where the conversation began. Not on our Mishnah, but the Mishnah over there. What happens if let's say she's not Mekadosh herself, but she backs out. from the shlichus, whether in front of the shlich or not in front of him. Now, what's the halacha? That's we had machlekes. Rabbi Shloimy says chazer she can back out. Rabbi Shloimy says no, she cannot back out, which the Gemara is later on going to ask from the halacha by shaleach get that we see that she could back out. But the first the Gemara explains the opinions. Rabbi Yochanan says she could back out because as a dibur about liber, the speech of appointing him as a shliach now could be uprooted by the speech saying, I don't want him to be my shliach. Shlakame says, no, she cannot back out. Why? No, speech cannot come and nullify speech. The speech that she made him a shliach now cannot be uprooted by speech of I don't want to be a shliach. So now the Gemara goes through these sources again. From Mishnah Masechtas Trumas. We said Beetle, if let's say he nullifies his shliach, who he appointed to take up Trumas. So if he nullified him before he took up the truma, so we say ain't truma a truma. The truma is not going to be a truma. Again, the same question as we have in the first version. You see that dibur is mavatal dibur, not like Rish Lakish. So Amar Rava, which here is not like we said in the first version. First version, Rish Lakish had explained in the case of our Mishnah that you cannot be mavatal something that's like an action, which is not the case by the Lishna Basra. He can't give the same answer because in our Mishnah he was able to give that answer. Say, oh no, you're right. I could hold dibur mavatal dibur, but our Mishnah is not like a regular dibur. Our Mishnah is like a case of a maisa. You can't give that answer with the Mishnah Daf Ayin test that we're going on the second version because there's no maisa over there. He has to come up with a different approach. So over here is we're talking about where the homeowner went first. What's this brisa talking about? Is where the balabais went first. And he took off his own truma. Dabali maisa. He's not just doing a dibur to mevatel the dibur. He actually did a maisa. Of course, that can be mevatel the dibur of the shliach. So he's not just backing out. No. You mean to say that you how could the shliach even be? No truma left. I guess you could give a larger amount of truma. But you say you pointed as a shliach to make truma for you, so maybe you can't uproot that. So Shailas, what would he be doing? But he's saying I did a ma'isa. I mean, you would say the balabais is not taking up truma because you already made him a shliach. So yeah, but if you hold it's a dibur cannot be mevatel. But I'm doing a ma'isa as if I'm mevatel his dibur. Now the questions go the other way. Shlakish asks on from the Mishnah Masechtas Kelim. Mishnah says, all the vessels could descend into a state of tumah with just a thought, saying, yeah, I want it to be like this. But the could only remove from its state of tumah only with a change of an action. Which, as we said before, we see an action can remove miyad ma'isa, miyad machshava from a previous action or a thought to make it tumah, an action can remove it. But just a thought that, no, it's not finished for me, that will not remove it from a previous action or machshava. Says Rish Lakish to Rabbi Yochanan, but Bishlam Yad Ma'isul Mafka, I can understand that from previous action the thought cannot remove. Because the speech cannot come and nullify an action. I'm not showing me a topic, but from a thought, another thought to remove it according to you. So again, like we said before, Malay says to him, a thought of tumah is different because that thought is like an action. Like Rapapa said, Rapapa Rami posed a contradiction. On the one hand, Ksiv Kiyitin, it's written Kiyitin, but a Kirin Kiyutan, but we read it as Kiyutan. Okay, so how is that? Kiyutan Dimadiyitin, when it is done by itself, has to be similar to when you do it actively. Mayitin the Nichele, just like when you're giving it, you're okay with it. So too when it's given is also that you're okay with it. But one thing we see is that your thought of being okay with it is like when you did it yourself. So we see it's considered like an action. Therefore, Rabbi Yochanan is not a raya against me because there I would agree that a machshava cannot be mitzi from that machshava because that machshava is like a mice. But now the Gemara has one final punch. It's Rabbi Yochanan Rish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan asked Rish Lakish by Mishnah Masechtas Gittin. Mishnah says, which we mentioned in the first version, if someone sends a get to his wife, Begia b'shliach, and he encounters a shliach, or he sends another shliach after him. Bamali says to him, the get I gave you is batal. So here's a batal, this is going to be batal. You see that a dibur is mavatal a dibur. Now, you cannot say what we said in the first version, because in this version, there we couldn't give the answer we gave in the first version. So it says the Gemara, that's a refutation of Rish Lakish, as we see, because you see a dibur is mevatel a dibur. Says the Gemara, and even by the first version, which is going on in our Mishnah, which the Gemara points out, even though you could say, like we said for Rish Lakish in the first version, that it was not a refutation, because we said Shanitzi is Mois Liad Isha. Said no. He said Rish Lakish says, okay, fine, you have a raya that dibur can mevatel dibur, but you don't see that dibur can mevatel dibur, that the original dibur had somewhat of an action, like in halacha of our Mishnah. Our Mishnah had where he was giving the money to the hands of the woman, the kamaisdom, it's like an action, and maybe you would say that a dibur cannot mevatel it. Says no, even so, we don't pass him like Rish Lakish, even though he has somewhat of an answer. We say asa did mevatel dibur, that speech could come along and mevatel dibur, that in the halacha of our Mishnah, if someone else does not come along and be mekadosh her within 30 days and she backs out, we pass it like Rabbi Yochanan, that her dibur could be mevatel original dibur, even though it has somewhat of a ma'isa to it, and still, even though there's an answer, we still don't pass it like Rish Lakish, and she's not going to be engaged. But the Gemara says, wait a second, if that's the case, kasha hilchasa hilchasa, we have a contradiction of how we pass in halacha. Because on the one hand, hilchasa Rabbi Yochanan, you're saying the halacha Rabbi Yochanan in our sugya over here. But the problem is, we know halacha always follows like Rav Nachman. But the Iboilu, they had asked the following question: what's the halacha? This get, after he said to the shliach that the get I gave you is bottle, could he subsequently use the get again? He said one of these flip-flops. 2 weeks later, he decides, you know what, I do want to divorce her. Could he take that get and divorce with? Rav Nachman says, yes, but you can go back and divorce with the same get itself. That means to say the dibur was not mavatelit. Rav Shloimy says, you cannot go and divorce with it again because his later dibur was mavatelit. Now, so I don't understand. Was he mavatelit or not? If you say halacha like Rabbi Yochanan, sounds like his lady was mevatlet. If you pass like Rabbi Nachman, see that it is not mevatlet. So the Gemara, no, that's not difficult. In the heat debat with shliach, although everyone agrees to Rabbi Yochanan that his dibur can mevatlet original dibur of nullifying the agency, but Mitaris get like batley, he didn't nullify the get from being a get. Rabbi Nachman paskins that you could use the get. That you can hold like Rabbi Yochanan and hold like Rabbi Nachman too. Now the Mishnah said that if someone says to a woman, "You're engaged to me after 30 days," and we said that if someone else comes and is mekadosh within 30 days, so we said mekadeshes l'sheni, she's engaged to the second person because, again, he said it should only be effect after 30 days, and here someone's coming within 30 days. However, we do have a machlekes and Rav. It's not so simple. Amar Rav, he says mekadeshes l'sheni la'olam. So Rav says, yeah, she's engaged to the second person forever because they don't become nullified after 30 days, because this guy gave time for it to take effect within 30 days, that she's considered single from the Kidushin of the first person. So she remains forever married to the second person. Shmuel, he says something interesting. He says, no, she only engaged to the second guy up until day 30. After day 30, the second one's Kidushin gets removed, and actually finishes up the Kidushin first. He just said, I want to be engaged after 30 days. So he gave her them, he did it first. It's just going to take effect then. So then it's going to take effect. So although she's single for the 30 days, after 30 days, she's engaged to the first guy. Now, Rav Chizda was sitting, he was asking, he says, I don't understand, Kidushin b'may paki. How exactly is the second one's Kidushin being removed? He's not giving a get, like what? How does it get removed? So Rav Yisrael says, Mar, you're right. You, the master, are Reisha on the beginning of the Mishnah that doesn't say me'achshav, masni la. You learned this machlokes of Rav and Shmuel, so therefore the kashale. So therefore you have a difficulty. You don't understand. How does it make sense that comes day 30 and you're moving when she was single all this time? Why is she not his wife anymore after day 30? But Rabbi Yehuda, however, a seifa masnila, he actually learned it on the seifa. So therefore, therefore he didn't have a difficulty with this teaching of Shmuel because there's a second teaching in our Mishnah. Not la'ach lamed. He added the words me'achshav l'achar shleishim yom b'chulu. If let's say the guy tells to this woman, from now and after 30 days, and then someone else comes and is mekadosh within 30 days, then the Mishnah said a different halach. It said mukadeshes ve'ein mukadeshes. And that's we have the machlekes Rabbi Shmuel. Amar Rab says mukadeshes ve'ein mukadeshes la'olam. She remains in the state of limbo forever. Meaning, even after 30 days, she remains in the suffix Kidushin of both of them, and she forbidden to both of them without one get, as the Gemara is going to explain later on. Shmuel says, no, mukudeshes ve'ein mukudeshes. She's only in the doubt, ela ad lamed yom, only up until day 30, because maybe the first one's going to die, and this Kidushin is not going to finish up. Comes out, the second one's Kidushin will take effect retroactively. But if it's after 30 days, so then actually, Paki Kedusha Sheni, the second one's Kedushin is removed, the Gamri Kedusha Rishon, and the first one's Kedushin gets finished up. As the Gemara explains, what's the side of the Machlokes over here? L'Rav, according to Rav, Misafkele, he wasn't sure, when this guy says from now and after 30 days, Itanohav, is that a condition? Is that a stipulation? If I don't back out within 30 days, then my Kedushin should be from now. Ichazar Havya. Maybe it was a retraction from this that I said from now. He's saying, no, I'm not saying from now. Rather, you should be engaged to me after 30 days. So therefore, she's always going to be in that suffix. Because if it's a stipulation, that means the first one's Kedushin took effect, the second one's Kedushin did not take effect. If it was a retraction, that means the second one's Kedushin took effect, and the first one's Kedushin did not take effect. So she's always in the state of limbo forever. But according to Shmuel, Pshitale de Tanohaba. According to Shmuel, it was obvious to him that it's a stipulation. It's from now and on condition of after 30 days. So therefore, all 30 days, the Kedushin is suspended. Because if it's a condition, he could still back out, but from day 30 on is when it finishes it up. So within 30 days, she's engaged to the first person, Mesafik, to the second person. But after 30 days, she's not Mukadeshes and Mukadeshes. Then you obviously did not back out within 30 days, and therefore she's going to be engaged to the first one and not to the second person. It says, what?
You can technically get married to the second one. Let's say there's
No, we're saying that's what I'm saying. It's in limbo. It's in limbo. She might be engaged to the second person if he backs out. So you'll have a suffix Kidushin status for that time, whatever the halachic ramification is going to be. But after day 30, says Shmuel, there's no more limbo anymore because we know that's the first one's Kidushin. Says Gemara, but look at that tonight. It's actually a machlokes tanoim. Then learn the brayso. Mahayoy malacha misa. Let's say a guy says, "Here, I'm giving you this get from today, and for after when I die." So the first opinion says get ve'ina get de b'chacham. The chacham say it's a get, but it's not a get because they're not sure. When he says ula archa misa, the same idea. Is that a stipulation? From today should be a get if I die, and when he dies, it comes out it was a get lamafrei from that day, which is a valid get. Or is it a chazar? Is he backing out? And he's backing out from what he's saying from today. And he's saying, no, this should be your get after I die. Now, if he's giving a get after he dies, he didn't say anything because in get lachamis, you cannot give a get after you're dead. Because once he's dead, how could you give a get? So obviously, the chum say it's a suffix, it's a suffix get. Rabbi Yomi says, no, it's not true, because that get. Like this is going to be a get because he holds like Shmuel, that seemingly, that it's a t'nai, it's a condition. Says the Gemara, aha. The name is, so it says the Gemara, so the Gemara has a question. If that's the case, why don't you just say straight up, Rav should say Aloch Rabbanan, which they're not sure if it's a Tanai or Chazara. The name is Shmuel, Aloch Rabbi, let Shmuel say Aloch like Rabbi, that is a Tanai. Why say it on your own if it's already a previous Machlekes Tanai? So the Gemara Tzricha know it's necessary because the Ilam Rav Aloch Rabban had Rav only said Aloch like Rabban Havmin. I would have thought to say Hasam over there. That's where you could be Mesupik and to say maybe it's backing out. Why over there Dafka by get? Because that's the L'chaykakasi. That he's coming to send her away, so that's very hard to send away a woman and divorce her. So maybe you could say he's backing out from what he said me'achshav. But over here, where it is Kidushin, the l'kurevakasi, where he's bringing her closer, as much as he could bring her closer, he would like to make her closer. So when he's saying after 30 days, we would say no, he's not backing out what he says right now. I would say that he agrees to Shmuel that it is a stipulation. So it wouldn't be enough just to say halacha like Rabbanan, because you would have thought to say they only said they're teaching only over there by get, not over here by Kidushin. And the same thing works the other way around also. V'yam Shmuel halacha Rabbi had Shmuel say halacha like Rabbi said that was clearly a Tanai. I would have thought to say Hasam who it's only over there that we're saying it's a Tanai and not a Chazara, because the person knows the Ingel Lachamisa. Everyone knows you cannot divorce after death, and he's not a person for nothing won't say a silly thing that it should be a get after I die when he knows it's not going to be a get. So that's why it's not. Where there is Kidushin after 30 days, if he doesn't go and if no one else gets to engage in the meantime, I would say that he agrees to Rav, then maybe he's backing out, that he does not want to get engaged to her right now. Why wouldn't he want this? Rashi says, because maybe he's thinking about another woman. He's like double dating. And he'll change his mind within 30 days. He's not sure. So maybe that he would agree to Rav that maybe it's a chazara. So tzricha, therefore, each one had to say it, no, in their context, by Kedushin, because you would have thought that maybe the case by Ged is different than the case of Kedushin. Now, the Gemara clarifies, Abaye says, according to the reasoning of Rav, that he's not sure if it's chazara, it's backing out, or to know, or a condition. Let's say one person comes along and says to her, you're engaged to me from now and after 30 days. The case of the Mishnah. Now here's where it gets interesting. Then another guy comes along and says, you're engaged to me from now and after 20 days. Which that means to say the days of the second one finishes within the time frame of the first one. So if the first one was backing out, that means to say the second one's Kidushin is first. Because the first one backed out from the Achshav, and therefore we're going with the later time, and that means to say that the second guy is really coming first. Now, as we get to the top of Samach and Aleph, then a third guy comes along and says, you're engaged to me from now and after 10 days. Which Rashi really says, this last guy, even if he didn't say he just did regular Kedushin, since no one's coming after him, what do I care about his Tanai? We're just saying the order of 30, 20, 10, but really the third guy really is not relevant. But says Abai, you have the following halacha that comes out according to Rav. That means from the first and the third guy you need to have a get. And the middle guy you don't need to have a get. Because either way you look at it, it's not the middle guy. If me'achshav ula'achar lama yom. The la'achar lama yom is a tanai that comes out, the kama kedushi. The first guy was the one that was engaged. The hanach lav kedushi, other ones are not engaged because it was a condition. Within 30 days, if I don't back out, that means I was engaged to you from now. So he was the first guy. So his kedushin was the kedushin. And if after this amount of days was backing out and saying, no, I only wanted then, that means the basa kedushin. That means the last guy is a kedushin because no one came after him. And his kedushin finished after 10 days. The hanach lav kedushi. Let me say the early ones were not kedushin. But either way, the middle guy is neither here nor there. So he's for sure not. So Gemara is a pshita, obviously. What's the chiddush of Abaya? The Gemara in the Mouth, would you say, hi lishna? No, this wording of me'achshav la'achar, a certain amount of days. Mashma tana u'mashma chazara. Meaning, this suffix is because it can mean either or. Some say it as a tanai, some say when they're backing out. And you could say that for one it's a tanai and one it's a backing out. Wow, so then you would have thought to say that actually you would require a get from every single one, even the middle one. Why? Like Rashi explains. Maybe the first guy, his intention was for backing out. So that means the second one is going to take effect. The second one meant it as a tanai, and his is valid. And that means the first one and the last one are not going to be kedushin, and you would need a get from the middle one. Now, at the same time, you could say that maybe the first one was a tanai and his one is kaim. And at the same time, you could say that all of them were backing out besides the last one. So Kamashmalam, that's what we need Abaya to say that no. It's not that this wording can mean either or. It's just that we're not sure, does it mean Tanai or does it mean Chazar? If it's a Tanai, for all of them it's a Tanai, and doesn't mean backing out at all. If it's backing out, so then it doesn't mean a Tanai at all. And the middle one's not going to be Kedushin. That's the Chiddush of Abaya to tell us that it's only going to be the first and last one, not the middle one. Thank you to any time hosting us.